Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on what is it today? Wednesday afternoon, right? Yeah, Thursday afternoon. Excellent. So today, my name is Gary. So I'm the Senior Solutions Architect for Alibaba Cloud, responsible for financial services and also innovation product. To my right, we have Charles, who is our director at ConsenSys, and then Edmund to my further right, who is a solution architect for ConsenSys. So today we're actually at the ConsenSys office. So thank you, Charles, for having us. And the topic that we're going to be talking about is the enterprise blockchain implementation on Alibaba Cloud. So I'll kick off and share an overview about our blockchain as a service offering. And then further on, we have Charles and Edmund sharing about a lot more about the industry-specific use cases and also what ConsenSys has been doing globally, actually, in terms of helping different enterprises really getting into the forefront of, I think the most important is not just about the blockchain technology itself, right? It is really about how to make it useful and make it valuable and really solving problems for a lot of our enterprise clients.
Absolutely.
Okay, so without further ado, I'll move into the presentation. Just a reminder to everyone that you can ask questions through the portal. And then what we'll do, we will do a central Q&A session after our respective presentations. Okay, so just a bit of fundamental. I won't spend too much time on it, but I really want to talk about how Alibaba thinks about blockchain. To make it very, very simple, it's really about establishing trust over networks. When we talk about in the age of internet, what we think about now in terms of what blockchain is allowing us to do is that by default, we believe that as more and more transactions or values or assets are going through different networks over the internet, we have a view that we start off by not trusting the network, and then through the application of technology, we will apply, we will help the, sorry, it's, looks like you're not seeing the slides. 1 second. All right. Sorry, we'll just make sure that you can see the slides, not just my face. Okay. So to us, blockchain is fundamentally changing the way we are now transacting over the network. Now, in terms of how we look at the, sorry, one moment. Okay, so traditionally when we talk about how we trade, right, or we transact between the different parties, so you can see there's a number of point-to-point transactions. Now we believe that with blockchain, it's going to help us by really giving us a fundamental new way of doing business over an infrastructure that allows us to share, replicate through a common ledger. And I'll talk a bit more towards the future of how we look at it is that we're doing a lot of investment on cross-chain technology. In particular, I'll talk a little bit about how we look at working with our partners in Hyperledger, in Ethereum, and also our Ant open chain technology. Now, obviously, Alibaba Cloud, we originated from a cloud technology company, but with blockchain, we are now becoming the new foundation for our blockchain as a service. And really, it's about bringing together two enterprise technology and really looking at how cloud can complement the way we manage our blockchain. And with that, hopefully, Alibaba has a motto that we make it easy to do business everywhere. And with that, we hope to promote the usage of blockchain, especially if we look at blockchain as the new way of doing corporate internet. So the more people that joins this ecosystem, which I think ConsenSys has been doing a great job with the Ethereum ecosystem. Similarly, we want to help make it easier for no matter whether you're at enterprise scale, whether you're at small to medium, you're a small to medium business. We want to make it easy for you and make blockchain as a technology accessible, regardless of what industry you're in and what size of the business you are in. Okay, just a brief history. So you can see that we've only established our blockchain team back in October 2017. So we're about 2.5 years on. Where we are now is we have Hyperledger Fabric and blockchain and also Ethereum Quorum all running on our blockchain as a service. Hyperledger and blockchain is now fully commercialized with Ethereum running through a beta version at the moment. So it hasn't been a long journey, but it's certainly been a very fast-growing one. Just a quick summary as well. We are doing significant investment on research and development. As you can see here, over the last 3 years, dating to about late 2019, we have been number one in terms of new patents being applied year on year since 2017. And it shows that we don't just talk about blockchain. We have about over 200 people around the world who are focused on not just the blockchain technology, but really about how do we apply it both within the Alibaba ecosystem and also the ecosystem that we work very closely with. And then just a few recognitions from the different consulting and research firms. So you can see here around how Gartner has been comparing us against the other providers. You can see the next slide that talks about Forrester of where we are playing. We're also in the recent Forbes Blockchain Top 50. And just a quick intro as well on our BAS portal. So to access the blockchain as a service, it's actually very simple. All you need is a cloud account, and you can basically just do a simple purchase. All the documentations are there if you're interested in reading more about the technical development guide. The ConsenSys team here will talk a little bit about what they're doing with Quorum. As you can see here, it's very, very simple to use, and for our cloud users, really, it's quite seamless for you. Okay, this is where our blockchain as a service nodes are scattered across the globe. Now, obviously, China, because Alibaba Cloud has a big presence in China, but as you can see, across Asia Pacific, and also selective locations in Europe and America also. So this allows the different clienteles to really make use of both the blockchain platform and also using the different cloud services to help them deliver the most seamless experience for their users. We've been spending a lot of time working together with the industry. You can see a few photos here. Bottom left is actually when Joe Lubin was in Hong Kong as part of the FinTech Week. And then you can see actually there's people from Hyperledger, there's people from different industry vertical. Up the top, we had Brian and also Julian in our Hong Kong office as well with Hyperledger Meetup. And to our right is actually our first ever meetup in Macau with Hyperledger. And then the bottom right was where we had the Macau government who visited our global cloud conference, and where we actually had a lot of in-depth discussion around the government use cases with our blockchain technology. So very obvious that there's a really strong interest out there. We are very big in terms of believing in, first of all, both the community development. So for us, it's not just about the technology part of blockchain, it's about the people, right? We want to work with the best people. We want to work with the industry who wants to make this technology work. There was an announcement that we did as well. Just want to highlight that we're also the first Hyperledger certified service provider in Asia and second globally. And this was announced last year in the Global Apsara Cloud Conference. Now our offering. So what is blockchain as a service? So really 3 core technology, starting from the left. So we've got Hyperledger Fabric supporting version 1.4 in terms of the long-term support, the version. N-Chain, our proprietary blockchain technology that provides a cross-chain interoperability, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. And obviously, our Ethereum Quorum that supports a multi-cloud deployment. So depending on the use cases that you're doing, there's different options. And today we'll be focusing on our Quorum capability. I mentioned before that the way we look at blockchain as a service is not just what we call a blockchain template, right? As some other providers would talk about. We talk about it as an end-to-end service that allows you to really just, in a click of a few buttons, deploy an entire blockchain for you to use. Obviously, do your configuration as required. But what the advantage that it gives you is you're leveraging the native cloud security. You're leveraging the way these computing resources operate in the background, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just focus on the blockchain layer itself and also focus on the development of the blockchain applications on top to basically solve whatever business problem that you're trying to solve. And in another, there's also another interesting fact is that if needed, you can actually deploy, for example, our Hyperledger Fabric bars onto your dedicated, if you need a on-premise deployment, we can also support that. Okay, ODATS, we call Open Data Access Trusted Service. This was a very recent development for us. Really, the focus here is that it's about making cross-chain technology compatible with each other. Right now, our first step has been opening up Fabric and also Ant-Chain, and then the next iteration will include Quorum as well. And this sort of goes back to that it is about making the blockchain technology as accessible as possible for our industry players. I won't go into the technical detail, but this is just for you to have a look at the components that are on and off the chain. Now with Hyperledger, we've also been spearheading a working group around multi-cloud and interoperability support. So now it's actually live as we speak. So basically, no matter where you have your blockchain nodes, you can actually have them all talking to each other as part of your chain setup. Okay, so very quick summary of our blockchain as a service. So widely used across different enterprises and small to medium businesses. You can see here, 1 billion accounts, over 1 billion daily transactions. For Hyperledger in our China region, actually, we've done integration with the Intel chip security. We support Fabric 1.4. It's a blockchain as a service that leverages a lot of our public cloud native capability for you. We can do on-premise, BaaS deployment. We've got comprehensive coverage across the 3 major technology. You can see there's a global recognition across the different major research house. We've been number one in blockchain patents since 2017. We have committed SLA across all the services for our bars, and we are actively and will continue to invest on cross-chain interoperability and multi-cloud deployment. And just I'll end it with the most recent, probably a very popular use case. If you've seen our Double 11 event that happens in 11th of November every year. Significant amount of transactions that happens. You can see here GMV of RMB $268 billion. That goes through the shopping festival. Now, blockchain plays a major part of this, ranging from product traceability and provenance to protection of our digital rights, digital copyrights, identity identification, supply chain financing, and also we've done something that is quite unique in terms of providing a traceability platform that looks at when there's a lottery draw. It allows anyone to actually look back into the draw itself and the logic that happens, so that if you are very interested in why someone got the prize, you can actually see it. Okay, and this is just a quick summary of the different types of use cases, of which Charles and Edmund will drill into more in terms of the coverage. But you can see here ranges, it's a very wide spectrum, but we are here not just to help you to deploy the technology, it's really to help you to actually make good usage of it and really apply it so that it solves the business problems for you and your customers.
I'm here with Edmund To, our solution architect here at the ConsenSys Hong Kong office, and my name is Charles. I'm the director of ConsenSys Hong Kong. And what we'd like to review today is really try to share with you an overview of the state of enterprise Ethereum and enterprise blockchain. Look a little bit at what was 2019, what are the trends for 2020, as well as deep diving into flagship projects built on Ethereum. And how to build with Ethereum in 2020.
May I interrupt a bit?
1 minute.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. So we keep going, and we are discussing here the state of enterprise Ethereum. So I think to understand really the ecosystem, it's important to understand the history of the Ethereum network, and as well as a technology and protocol. So it all started in 2014 when Vitalik Buterin, as known also here in Asia as VB, has been producing this first iteration of Ethereum. And the crowd sale went into early 2015, and ConsenSys was started in 2015 as well. So Joe Labin was the CEO of ConsenSys and founder of ConsenSys, was part of the ecosystem from day zero. And since then, the protocol has been doing really a lot of progress over the years, going live in 2015 and starting to explore with the enterprise blockchain, as well as all the members of the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. How can this technology be deployed in the world of enterprises? ConsenSys started to develop in 2018 its Pegasus Ethereum client, and we launched also a little bit later together with Hyperledger Besu, which is now part of the family of Hyperledger. It's version number 1, so it's definitely ready for production. And I think Edmund will tell us more about Besu in a few minutes. And we launch as well Codify, which is an application layer built on the top of Ethereum in order to tokenize or manage digital payments. So if you look today at the world of enterprise blockchain applications, there is really two streams of works. People have been developing in the past years a lot of applications which we call permission blockchain or private blockchains. So this is usually what we call, in a way, some kind of intranets. It's a private network with a certain number of members, and this kind of setup allows you to get a little bit faster transactions, and you can customize more things, and it's also allow you to control the privacy of this network. What we've seen growing at very fast pace is really a transition from the enterprise blockchains builders, from the permission blockchain to the public net deployment. And that's where the cloud providers and the cloud infrastructure makes even more sense when we get to connect through the mainnet many different players. So if you look at ConsenSys today, when we come into this market, today ConsenSys is the world's largest pure play blockchain company, and we develop infrastructure components to help all developers as well as enterprises to really go into productions on the Ethereum chain. So you look at the platform API such as Codify, you look as well at Pegasus, which is this enterprise blockchain client, and as well as a multitude of developer tools such as Infura, MetaMask, this little fox which you might have been playing with, but also ConsenSys Diligence, which is focusing on security assessments and security audit for your platforms. So what happened last year? And we know in blockchain, 1 year in blockchain is probably the same as 1 year in cloud. In cloud technology, 1 year is almost 5 years, if not more. There is really 5 takeaways of 2019 for the blockchain industry. Number one, we've seen really a very strong network effect in all the Ethereum ecosystem as well as blockchain ecosystem overall. This network effect means there is more and more players which are building on this platform. So because there is more and more players on these platforms, they are bringing more and more value. Should it be on Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Besu, or some other networks as well? Blockchain is a technology of coordination. The more people there is on this network, the more value they bring and the more people they attract. So it's really a positive cycle, and this network effect has been extremely strong. So you see here an illustration, for example, of all the DeFi, so the decentralized finance ecosystem, which has been growing very strongly in the Ethereum mainnet. In terms of tech stack, we've seen more and more integrations between different projects. We see more and more data analytics tools which are publicly available, as well as more and more legal tools in order to do some smart contracts, as well as smart legal agreements. And a lot of experimentations around the digital payment, the stable coins, and I know there is a lot of central banks as well working on this, so it's definitely a topic which started next year and which is surfacing very strongly in 2020. Enterprise use case developments have been moving extremely fast. If we want to mention a few, Bank Santander has been, for example, deploying an end-to-end blockchain bond for a value of 20 million. There is a lot of consortium which are building as well on Ethereum, such as ConsenSys, a consortium of global traders of agricultural commodities, which have chosen the Ethereum blockchain to grow their network. So the enterprise use cases on the blockchain are getting stronger, and they involve more and more really global players, which looks at coordinating their activity and their business. There is also more and more tools and standards coming up. I think we really have to be grateful for all the good work made by the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. More than 500 members now, and all these companies are basically working together to define standards so that any project or any software built on this blockchain infrastructure are really getting compatible and bringing the most value to the people building on this. The other big thing, which I think is a trend to look at for 2020, is this open standard settings, and I think it really links to some of the works at Alibaba Cloud, looking at all these different blockchains and looking at how you can basically connect these networks. How can you connect these companies and group of companies in order for their infrastructure to be connected and bring even more value. So if you look today at Ethereum in terms of numbers, about 7,000 nodes globally, On the mainnet, 88 million unique addresses, close to 850,000 smart contracts, which have been created in February only, and a series of numbers which are really showing that there is a very strong launch and a very strong level of activity all over the network, should it be on the protocol layer, but also more and more on the application layer. So that's extremely encouraging, and this network effect seems unstoppable. So when we look at the enterprise blockchain, there is things which are really driving this enterprise blockchain industry and impacting all of us. Should you be an engineering company such as ConsenSys, but also cloud services providers such as Alibaba Cloud. Obviously, the global economy is facing some challenges, but there is also opportunities and demand from the central banks, which are looking at digitalizing their respective currencies, and this brings basically a very strong demand for digital infrastructure. This brings a very strong demand for blockchain infrastructure in order to have these stable coins and these digital currencies to move across the economy and bring their value. So this kind of trend has been really pushed forward by Libra and this project led by Facebook. But from this first, I would say, signal from the market, many different activities has been reported all across the world. So that's a very strong set of incentive for everyone to pursue. And why this momentum is getting more and more solid and visible? There is a new set of tools available. The technology is obviously maturing. The integrations with cloud service provider is today definitely mature and ready for production. So all the bits and pieces of this technology and the integrations with all its stakeholders are really getting together. So people are changing their mentality about how they work. So it's also impacts the way they design their digital infrastructure. There is also more experience within the solution architects and developer community, and the overall UI and user experience has been clearly improved. So let's have a look at some flagship projects. We talked about the technology. Edmund will deep dive in a few minutes into the Ethereum stack as per today. But I think one thing we really want to highlight is a handful of use cases where you see blockchain being used. So the first one is stablecoins. You've seen this week the Central Bank of China, or some people are reporting the Central Bank of China is starting to deploy his digital currency, and it's involving blockchain technology, and many other central banks will follow this direction. So that's a very, very strong topic where ConsenSys is part of numerous conversations and as software to help these conversations to move forward. The second topic is really about the real estate tokenization. Real estate is one of the most common and one of the biggest pool of asset globally, and this industry is getting some benefits from the blockchain. We're going to deep dive into this. Linked to the stable coins, we've got the payments and the digital money. Global trade also is leveraging the blockchain technology, as well as capital markets and decentralized finance. So in the world of stablecoins, you look at a full new asset category which is coming up, looking at digital token with price stability and the way you can stabilize them. So some of them will be fiat backed, others will be asset backed, for example by gold, or some of them will be purely representation of digital assets or non-collateralized stable coins. So stablecoins are a strong provider of blockchain demand and blockchain technology. In terms of real estate, we've seen with some of our customers, such as Mata Capital in France, going into production and a willingness to really explore the technology and unveil the benefit of the technology. So with Mata Capital, we've been able to basically launch a platform which allows this real estate investor to tokenize and digitalize its funds in order to accelerate the process of registering them and keeping the registry updated. So a very interesting use case which allows a bit of freshness into the product offering and a lot of agility from the business side of things. Central bank digital currency or CBDCs. Union Bank with Project I2I have been using Ethereum together with ConsenSys to tokenize the Filipino peso and move it between the Philippines and Singapore. In South Africa, the South African Reserve Bank have been leveraging Ethereum and Quorum to deploy a case study on the wholesale digital currencies, and ConsenSys has been really bringing an update on all the trends and some thought leadership on a white paper on digital currencies, which we're happy to share with you when you have time to read it. Subscriptions and payment in enterprises. It's really links together with the stablecoins narrative and conversation we had earlier. We look at how we can enable companies to get subscriptions payments based on stablecoins or digital currencies, and there is a very strong proposition from Ethereum here, having the privacy features as well as the global reach of the network. Comgo, a project which is in production for almost a year now, which enables a group of enterprise traders in the industry of oil to basically digitalize all their business flows so that they could really store data, exchange data, keep the privacy where they need it, but accelerate the pace of trading, as well as improving the bottom line and improving the operations within the companies, so that with moving all these trades to a digital platform, it really enables the business and make it stronger. Another use case where you see blockchain really bringing a lot of value, and there is projects all over the world right now on this topic, is really the capital market industry. And within this capital market industry, there is one use case, which is the use case of syndicated loans, when a loan for a company is basically supported by different investors. What it means is a very large number of papers and signatures and approvals has to be reconciled. So as per today, it's a process which is extremely complicated and costly to run. And the solutions we are able to deploy today with blockchain is really to help to get the coordination works around different investors, pulling money for us in syndicated loans, and all the documentation associated with that to be greatly facilitate and make this use case much more profitable and easier to deploy. DeFi, decentralized finance, is also a topic which many people are exploring. It links to the stablecoin conversations we got earlier, and we see more and more experimentation. It's still early days of this subset of finance, but definitely a lot of potential into this part of the blockchain industry, as well as the intersection it has with the world of finance. So you look, for example, here at some of the lending proposals from some platforms, where some of them can really compete with the banks because their costs and the level of automation they are able to optimize with blockchain technology is basically being rewarded towards the customers, and customers get higher rewards jumping on this. I'll share now the screen with Edmund, solution architect at ConsenSys, where we're going to deep dive into how do we build on Ethereum today, how do we build on Ethereum and Alibaba Cloud. There is a lot to dive here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Charles. So this is Edmund here, and as my role as solution architect, we work with different type of clients, in particular enterprises, to use blockchain as the foundational technology to solve different problems in different industry. And today we want to share a little bit our approaches and the technology we use in some of our projects. So first, I'll say this is the journey on on a blockchain application development. So we start with these 6 different stages. First of all, we want to make educated business decisions on the understanding of the foundation of blockchain technology. Next, we will look into the applicability of the blockchain technology to the problem statement. And the next part, we will strategize and break it down into different technical features as well as user story, and to provide a final solutions to all the stakeholders involved. Next, we will design from a user experience perspective, and we would like to let the stakeholders they can easily solve their pain points. And in the next 5 and 6, we actually will go through different iterations on development cycle and to build the applications with the core functionality and with the ease of use. So what here we are showing is the architecture stack of enterprise Ethereum, and this is actually a standard not produced by ConsenSys but produced by the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. So Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is a non-profit organization which has over 500 members. So when we think about building on top of blockchain, building on top of Ethereum, this is a specific kind of a standard that we are following. So if you see that in the blockchain space, other than ConsenSys, there are other players building on top of Ethereum, such as JP Morgan, such as Bank Santander. And when we are building applications on top, we don't follow a proprietary standard. We follow very well-defined standard, and we break it down into these 5 areas. So the first, we have the application layer. Okay. Second, we have the tooling. And the third one, which is pretty interesting here, and we want to highlight here, which is the enterprise layers, which is mainly these 3 P's. So privacy, performance, and permissions. Next, we have the core blockchain layer, and lastly, we have the networking layer. And the message which we want to emphasize is at ConsenSys, we have experience building on top of all these 5 layers. And what we see on the both left and right is we have a very mature products which for anyone we can use it from the application layer, and the product we use is called Codify, which is a set of applications allowing enterprises to build on different use cases. In the middle, we have packages, which is focusing on the enterprise layer that provide permissioning, that provide privacy and performance. And at the bottom, we have products such as Infura, as well as a Hyperledger Besu that allows enterprises to access to both the public main Ethereum network as well as to forming enterprise network very easily. So in this slide here, what we are seeing is a project called Hyperledger Besu, and it's a full implementation of Ethereum for both mainnet and enterprises. And what we see is this has the most advanced permissioning and privacy features, which could be used for some of the most complex use cases. And from our experience, we have been using it in some of the industries such as finance or supply chain that require the highest level of privacy and performance. We also have features such as privacy group as well as off-chain transactions, which can be leveraged by using this project. And the best of it is this is free to use, and this is we can also develop this on top of Alibaba. So next week we will also have more seminars in regard to Hyperledger, and if you are interested, please get in touch. We would love to get in touch with Alibaba as well as ConsenSys. We would love to showcase with you how easily to deploy a business network on top of Hyperledger Besu. So with that. Thank you, everyone. Let's move to the Q&A section.
So so we have a little bit of time for the Q&A. So I'll just have a look at the questions that's come through. So probably one for you first, Charles. So obviously during this unprecedented period of COVID-19, have you and the ConsenSys team seen any sort of new emerging use cases or queries, right, that are coming from some of your clientele or industry partners?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. We've seen two things. To be totally transparent, some projects are getting in standby because people get busy with their priorities as per today, and that's really fair enough. There is two things coming our way. People are looking very closely at their supply chain, and they want to really be able to trace. They want to be able to digitalize their supply chain at much faster pace because they have to work remote or because basically the context has changed. So that's one first very strong demand we see is really how can you use blockchain to optimize your supply chain. And supply chain is a very complex use case where you've got so many different stakeholders between the manufacturers, the raw materials providers, the shipping companies, the importers. So there is many people and the works of many people to coordinate, and blockchain is doing a fantastic job for that. The second use case is looking at digital payments. Since these challenges of COVID-19 are changing the habits of many consumers and the way companies pay each other or lend money to each other, we've seen a very strong acceleration of customers looking at how they can use digital money in a way which is more efficient. Should it be for borrowing, for payments? So there is many different use cases. But overall, I would say that some companies are standing by, and then they realize that actually the digitalization of their business, moving their business to the cloud, moving their business to blockchain is really of first priority for them. So we are very lucky enough to be really busy here in the region and in ConsenSys overall. So it's always a good time for us in this industry.
Wonderful, great. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. I think I can. I'll take this one. So the question is Quorum one of the products that's on free trial on Alibaba Cloud for individuals? So the short answer is yes. It is on because it's going through beta. So we do need help from the community to help us mature it. I mean, to put it into perspective. Hyperledger was only on beta probably for about 6 months before we went on to full commercialization. So we expect Quorum to follow a similar footpath. And I think, just a little bit about, I think the sort of the unprecedented time as well has actually driven a lot more questions or a lot more queries, right? Suddenly on exploration on how do people apply, right? Blockchain technology, and I always tell people don't do blockchain for the sake of doing blockchain, right? Make sure that because blockchain, from our perspective, is one of many solutions to problems out there, but in certain use cases that has a lack of trust, or it requires a lot of trust established between many different parties, then blockchain is more efficient. Right? I'm not saying it is the only way forward. So we do encourage people to really, try it out. Right? It doesn't hurt. We've got experts here. We've got in-house experts as well. But of course, for us, the build of the ecosystem is the most important. Right? As we said, it is about making it more accessible, and then the more people use it, the more useful it becomes, the bigger the ecosystem and the network becomes, and then it becomes this positive cycle, right, that it continues to feed. Okay, so next question. So obviously, so another question for Charles. Yesterday's announcement around the CBDC that are, but of course, to me, I only saw a few WeChat posts. Right, I can't validate whether it's a real or not. But the question really is about CBDC or central bank digital currency seems to be widely talked about now. From your point of view and from what you see and what what do you think? Right? Obviously now China appears to be moving into scaled deployment. Of course, this is still a very limited. On the news, it was four cities, I think, or it's very limited. How do you see it play out, right, from your point of view?
I think that's very interesting, and we are very lucky to see China really leading the way on this topic. We know, and we are involved with some of them, other regulators globally working on this stablecoin topic. And the way they've been working through that is usually looking at wholesale stablecoins, so how you can design a CBDC which is joining and linking the central banks with commercial banks. So it's more a wholesale play. But I think really when the CBDC will really bring their value is when they will go and reach the users, when they will reach the SMEs, and they will really enable digital first type of payments. So this will be very interesting to see how this deployment is happening in China, and we are very lucky to be so close here in Hong Kong and with Alibaba to this innovation powerhouse that is the Central Bank of China, and showing to everyone what are the optionalities. But it's definitely a very central topic now, and it's really enabled to really digitalize the money primarily.
Yeah.
So we see this will be blockchain enabled, and we see this moving more and more towards the retail side of digital currencies, and this is where it's going to be really interesting and basically impacting everyone's life.
Yeah. And I think to add to that really good point, Charles, I think people often forget that central bank digital currency, don't directly relate it to cryptocurrency. I think they're two very fundamentally different concepts. Given that the digital CBDC is really talking about digitizing your cash, right? So when we talk about CBDC, it's what we call M0 replacement. So literally, okay. Okay, so so we're literally talking about the cash replacement, right? Physical hard cash replacement. So I think that's a very key concept for the audience as well, right? So it is whereas cryptocurrency it is literally a digitized form of an asset, right? Which is then sort of it's a token of value, right? So it's a bit different. So I think people need to just obviously very interesting. Everyone's watching. I'm watching personally because I don't like using cash, right? I mean that's just a personal preference. All right. Next question for Edmund, because it sort of is diving quite deep into the technical domain. Any new development of ERC 1400 in 2020 from ConsenSys? Will there be any down-to-earth use cases of security token application in Asia?
Cool. So just a quick recap. So particularly this question is on ERC 1400, and this is a Ethereum token standard which is focusing on the security aspect. So if we want to represent security on the blockchain, in particular on Ethereum, how does that look? So it has certain properties such as security could have different classes of security. So you have different voting rights. It could pay out things like dividend. It could have things like corporate actions. And what we are seeing is we are actually seeing pretty good momentum in the Ethereum ecosystem in Hong Kong as well as in Asia, that companies are using this newer standard of Ethereum token into tokenizing a range of assets, such as real estate as well as infrastructure. So if you think about real estate or even like infrastructure like roads or tunnels or solar power plants, typically these sort of assets, they are only accessible to certain type of institutional investors. which the investment size is huge. But by using blockchain as a technology and using some of this newer token standard, such as ERC 1400, that allows the asset itself to cut it down into smaller pieces to have a greater liquidity pool, have more people to access into this soft asset class. And also, I think a thing that we see is regulators such as SFC. They are making announcements saying, okay, they are looking into this sort of token and saying, okay, how they can be compiled with regulations for investor protections. So what we see is we are seeing a very healthy roll ahead in terms of this particular use case.
Great, thank you. We have about 4 minutes, so let's try and get 1 or 2 more questions in. So I think I'll take this one. So the question is there any plans to include Hyperledger Besu, which is a good and advanced enterprise Ethereum client in Alibaba Cloud? So since Besu came out, we are assessing it with our product development team to see where it fits within our blockchain as a service roadmap. At the moment, obviously, it is an exciting technology because it sort of fits our general broader theme of investment into what we call cross-chain, right? Interoperability. So it is something that whilst we don't have it directly currently on the roadmap, we are assessing it. Hopefully, if we hear more demand from our community now that you've learned about our blockchain as a service, we hope that that will help us sort of line up where we should be landing Besu onto our roadmap.
And I'd like to tell you also that even if Besu is not available yet as a service on Alibaba Cloud, you can deploy on Alibaba Cloud Hyperledger Besu. And if you have an interest into a workshop, maybe this could be a next workshop together, which will be for developers only, looking at how we can deploy Hyperledger Besu on Alibaba Cloud. So if you have some interest, please be in touch with Alibaba, be in touch with ConsenSys, and we'll try to make time and get a deep dive, hands-on, how to deploy a Besu node and Besu network on Alibaba. That will be fun and easy.
All right. I'll probably do one last question, right, which is what people seem to like to ask. So what's the advantages to use Alibaba Cloud blockchain as a service versus other cloud, right? Now, we don't normally just talk about the other cloud because I think that's not the point. I think the point is I believe what we do well, right, is that as I mentioned in the presentation before, blockchain as a service leverages a lot of our native cloud capability. So if you operate in this particular region, be it in Asia Pacific or even if you have operations within China, I think our footprint, right, our cloud footprint is naturally going to help your deployment. And the way we look at blockchain as a service, really, it is about the ease of usage, so that you can rapidly deploy all your relevant nodes with very little development for the blockchain itself. Obviously, you need to go and develop the applications, right? The smart contracts, etc. That we're not going to solve for you, right? But obviously, we have partners who may be able to help you out, such as ConsenSys and others. So really the advantage, I would say, it's more about using blockchain as a service, right? So that you just treat it like a commodity or a utility, right? You can focus on your business cases, focus on the application logic, focus on the smart contracts to really resolve to help generate value, right? So not just about deploying a particular piece of technology. I think that's what's attractive about blockchain as a service.
And just maybe to conclude also, when you deploy a blockchain network, you will connect different companies and from sometimes different countries, from different industries. And and the core value proposition of blockchain is to coordinate the work of everyone. So maybe to answer partially your questions, what is the advantage to deploy blockchain on Alibaba Cloud is maybe the advantage is the existing customer base of Alibaba. This means if you want to deploy a blockchain network, some of your customers and some of the members of the network will be with some other cloud providers, but having you and making yourself familiar with how to deploy blockchain networks on Alibaba is going to make it very easy for the Alibaba customer base to join the networks and the application. So there is really, I would say, a virtual and positive network effect just by working on different cloud service providers, and Alibaba is clearly one of the leaders. So it helps you to get a more successful network joining this leadership.
Very well said, Charles. So look, I think we're just on time, so which is great. Obviously, 60 minutes sort of just went by, but if you have any questions, feel free to continue to ask it in the channel. We've got our contact details made available as well. We will also make the materials available. We just need to do some packaging before we release it back to yourselves. Look, hopefully this is just one of many of the webinars to come. We do hope that situation, obviously we're in Hong Kong right now, but we do hope that situation in Hong Kong continue to stabilize so that next time when we do this, we can also not just do a webinar, but also meet yourselves in person. Because obviously now we're in a room of 3 people to adhere to the legal constraint. But we do want to continue to hear from you, and hopefully today you found it useful, and we'll love to hear your feedback as well after the webinar. Okay.
Thank you so much for having us, Gary, and see you all on Alibaba Cloud on Ethereum blockchain as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.